Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the seventh stage of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift from Bourg-en-Bresse to Chambéry. We're heading towards the Alps. Chambéry is the base of the decathlon team for many, many years. And we have a 160k medium mountain stage with one sort of longer climbing section. We have flat for 102 kilometers, some rolling hills, but then they do a 3.8k, 7% climb, category 2, descent, short valley, and then a stepped climb. It's like 4 kilometers of climbing. There's a 7% mile section in there. And then they do no real descent, a plateau, and then the Col du Granier. 9Ks, 5.3%. Not that hard, to be honest. Like 6% for the last 4Ks. And then the main feature of this stage is a 18-kilometer descent into Chambéry. Not that steep, 5 to 6%. Not that technical either, to be honest. Much more technical descents yesterday, but a long one nonetheless. Yesterday we had a breakaway winner, and today, Benji, we had another massive breakaway with some pretty strong riders in it.
That is certain. We've got Chloe Dargan in the breakaway, so a Canyon SRAM either breakaway candidate or a satellite rider. Marie Lenet, the French champion for FDJ Swiss. Lotto Kopecky for SD Works. Once again, Maeva Squibon, the rider that won yesterday in the breakaway already. Maria Meyering for Movistar, 2 Dutch riders for Little Trek, Brandt and Van Anrooy. Justine Riquiere, which is an interesting one, for AG Insurance Soudal. We'll get into why certain riders might be in this breakaway in a second. Megan Jastrap for Picnic Postenel, Susanne Andersen for UNOX, Celia Lemuel for Ceratizet, Roof Edwards for HPH, Alicia Gonzalez for Saint Michel, Alice Arzoufi for Laboral, Fiona Mangan, the, I think, Irish champion for Windspace, and then 2 riders from Volker Wessels, Eleni Janssen, the Luke favorite, and Maud Rijnbeek in there as well. And when you see this breakaway, Patrick, what do you see as the go-to riders that you're like, okay, these riders are going for the stage versus these riders are maybe balancing stage versus helping their leader?
Dygert is maybe a satellite rider for Niewiadoma. Justine Riquiere, when the coverage started, she's not pulling at all. That suggests that she's there primarily as a satellite rider. Lucinda Brand was a tug buddy for Shirin Van Anrooy's stage win ambitions. Mary Linette is a satellite rider. She won't climb with the best of them. And I must be frank, and I know it's obvious now, but I thought there was a very, very high chance Maeve Squibon will go back-to-back because we had a 4.5k 5% climb yesterday. She was in the GC group yesterday. There was an attack phase. She attacked so hard out of the group, no one even thought about responding, and she took a minute on a 10-minute climb because everyone was cooked and had to recover. So from the break, she's going to be very hard to beat on a 9k 5% climb.
That is, if the breakaway wins, because the gap towards the breakaway was actually not like 5 minutes, etc. It got to 2 minutes 40 in the first half of the race. Then Phoenix controlled for a little bit, and it was actually kept at that 2 minutes 40 until we get to the run-in towards the Côte de Saint-Franc, where Phoenix stops controlling, Patrick, and we see the gap explode in the next 20 kilometers from 240 to 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Were you surprised to not see other teams like, whether it's SD Works, whether it's FDJ Suez, the head favorite of the race on paper, not trying to control the breakaway a bit? Or they, because they're technically in the breakaway with Marie Lenet, but what is that worth?
Not much, because she can't probably do the descent faster than Vollering and Lebu. I think no one really had any plan to do anything today, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, tomorrow the spectre of Madeleine hangs across over the whole race. I think I think everybody underestimates Gigante, and there will be... Yeah, probably someone might lose the podium to Gigante because they underestimated her. Whether it's Vollering, maybe not. Whether it's Ferrand Prévot, it could be Van der Breggen, it could be Niewiadoma. I think someone is going to lose out to a GC position because today, yeah, you don't want to let Justine Riquiere get in front and help Gigante on that last descent. And also, yeah, frankly, the first descent of the categorized climb is quite technical. Then there's a valley afterwards. I mean, if you drop Gigante on the descent and then pull with Wiebers and then Kopecky all out in the valley, she is cooked.
About that specifically, there were 2 questions I wanted to see answered today. I, like you said, wasn't expecting a lot of teams to really put pressure on on the race to try and make big gaps here, even though, in my opinion, Sarah Gigante, her clear weakness, I think everybody sees it, is descending. So seeing a stage like today with a 16-kilometer descent seems like an opportunity to potentially take time and put pressure onto a rider like Sarah Gigante. But then yesterday, they had similar moments where Gigante was literally off the back on 2 or 3 descents, and they let her come back. So I was curious, is that going to happen again today? Or are they still within that underestimation phase of yesterday? Because let it be clear, if Sarah Gigante has the same watts as she had at the Giro d'Italia, she's at least podiuming tomorrow, probably better than just a podium. So she's at a high level when it comes to her pure climbing ability. Now, she's also had to work for Le Cours Pinard a little bit in the last few days, but it seems like the team was focusing on both being leader today. I wanted to see that on the road today as well, not just words, but also actions. And we'd see today whether there would be weakness in one of them on the climb, etc., and whether that would play out. But you pointed at it already, Patrick, the Côte de Saint-Franc, the climb before the Granier, so not the big climb of the day. There's a descent where, in the descent, SD Works starts pushing with Lorena Wiebes, and then they stop halfway, but within that time, Gigante is already gapped, and then they just don't do anything anymore. Like,
it was bizarre. So like the breakaway got pulled by Lucinda Brand, Van Anrooy pulled that whole climb full gas, Squibon, Hikita is all sitting in. Their gap does stay about the same. In fact, they take the gap out to 4:22. So the break is looking good because, yeah, it was no real control in the peloton. No one's really worried about a GC threat. Plenty of teams represented. But yeah, like when SD Works came to the front with Wiebes, I thought, here we go. They got Kopecky in front. Wiebes is split the peloton in descents a lot this year, actually. She deliberately did it in Spain. First 2 corners, bang, bang. They're pushing. It's in a line. There's splits happening. Gigante's last wheel already on a gap. And then halfway down the descent, Wiebes just completely stops. Like, starts just chilling. And then they get to the valley. Gigante's actually on like 15 seconds. Like, split on group 3 with no teammate. And just no one pulls. So I was like, okay.
We are talking about tomorrow, Patrick. We're talking about tomorrow, and I always feel like cycling is a bit reactive more than proactive, as in when there's... So let's say we're in a Grand Tour, Patrick, you and I, and you're the pure climber that can't time trial, and I'm the time trialist that can't climb. So on the initial climbing stages, on paper you take time on me, but in the time trial, I take time on you. You have to project the time loss you will have in future stages already on the mountain stage that come before that time trial. So you would know, as a pure climber, okay, I'm going to lose 2 minutes to this Benji guy in the time trial. I need to make sure I gain more than 2 minutes on the climbing stages before that. That's the thought process. The same counts for Madeleine. The same counts for Madeleine, where if you know that Gigante on paper, if she has her best watts, can drop you on Madeleine, then try to take time on her before instead of having to do it afterwards. Now, that being said, there is a clear opportunity on stage 9, though, to still kill Sarah Gigante, even though she's in yellow.
Yeah, and that could happen. That could happen. But you never know. What if you put her on a minute? Maybe what if you took an extra minute the last 2 stages, today and yesterday?
Yeah.
And AG Insurance do something really stupid, like they just then chain her to KLCP on the climb tomorrow.
I would much rather, if I'm FDJ Suez, look at this race and use Shabby instead of going for the polka dots in the first few days to ride in these stages and take some more time on Gigante. That I'd much prefer, for an exact reason that you mentioned as well. If Gigante is behind, then that team is more likely to put Gigante in a domestique role than in a co-leadership role. It's because she's this close in GC that they consider her co-leader before yesterday morning, you know?
Asian Insurance Sudal thought she was going to lose like 3 minutes in the first 4 stages.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. They're like, sweet, we got 2 leaders now. So anyway, call comes back. Both groups are very strange. So then the breakaway completely stops. Just completely stops. No one pedaling at all. And that's probably because, Justine Hakira is not cooperating because she wants to go for the stage, because she wants to conserve her legs to help behind. Daigat somewhat similar. Kopecky the same. Then Squibon and Meyering start attacking with Ruth Edwards. They don't get away. In the peloton behind, on a short uphill in the valley, Phoenix de Koenig start riding really hard with Schweinberger and then Castelline. They just start smashing it. They then stop. So that was, I don't know, they were just trying to make it hard. And the gap went from 4 minutes 20 down to 2 minutes. And we're like, the breakaway, I thought the breakaway is completely throwing. Like, what are they doing?
I was low-key surprised that Maud Rijnbeek was the one that survived longer than Eline Janssen in the breakaway for Volker Wessels, and Rijnbeek even attacked on the first part of this climb, got a bit of a gap of half a minute on the other breakaway riders, where we eventually saw the attacks once again that you already hinted at, but also, we saw Dijkert being super strong in response then, Van Anrooy, Squibon, Gekira, those were the 4 riders chasing down Rijnbeek on the early slopes of the Granier, but then an absolutely, can we classify Maeva Squibon on this final climb as a thermonuclear attack as a whole?
Yeah, she did one in the saddle, seated, dropped Van Anrooy, had Hekira on a gap, and I think just Meyering followed her. And then the next corner, she hit her with the out of the saddle, a lot of souplesse. She has a good riding style, actually, Squibon, and properly attacks. And she's just way stronger than everybody else. This is 5%, draft matters a lot. She just destroys the breakaway, puts them on 45 seconds to the next best rider on this climb. And again, like yesterday, Benji, the reason the break has a chance if you give it a gap is because there's no mountain domestiques. Royakkers does the best work possible for the other GC favorites. Royakkers does the whole of Granier pretty much. And she drops. There's big riders dropping. Kerbel drops. Peterson drops with Kim Lecourt-Pinard very, very early on this 5% climb. And it's the yellow jersey who has 30 seconds on everybody else. No one takes over from Royakkers. Lebu is there. Muzic was dropped. Shabby's legs don't work because there's no QM points available anymore. And it's true.
It's true.
And they just... And then the other GC riders have no teammate. I mean... I guess this is where... I guess Kopecky was caught and dropped already, so she couldn't pace. Lynette was also caught too early. She couldn't pace. Visma had no satellite rider. I think the team that played the break the best was Agent Insurance Soudal. I mean, Visma needed a Femke de Vries from the break or Van Aert just to pace for 2 minutes. Just to pace for 2 minutes after Royakkers. Royakkers set it up for them perfectly and no one did anything.
They set it up, but actually with Kopecky and Lynette, if we go further onto the climb, I think they actually get caught later on the climb because Lecour was already quite a bit behind when Marie-Lynette and Kopecky get caught because Gigante is then in second wheel behind Royakkers once they catch, and I don't even think Marie-Lynette gets properly dropped before the top of this climb anymore. So there was the possibility for SD Works and FDJ Suez, if my history of the race is right, to have them be there earlier and be of use for that reduced group of GC favorites. But now to bring it to the 2 riders we mentioned here, Patrick, Gigante earlier, Kim Lecourt-Pinard being dropped on this Col du Granier, the yellow jersey, in peril, in trouble, she's suffering, etc. She's being put on a 30 seconds, 40, 45 second gap maximum, probably half a minute mostly. And we see that gap staying relatively the same in the last 2 kilometers of the climb then, because the tempo reduces. But we do see a clarity, first of all, that Gigante does not have to wait for Lecourt-Pinard. Good. Imagine if that would have happened. That would have been a crazy decision. That does not happen. Gigante stays in that front GC group. Outside of that, we go towards the top of this climb, Patrick, and at the exact top, we see a move by Demi Vollering, which, there's not much use of doing that over the top, outside of maybe positioning yourself for the descent. That's a valid reason. If I look at that, the second time, I can give it an excuse. Were you surprised Gigante didn't attack?
No, she's just trying to stay in good position for the descent, probably hoping
I think she wasn't allowed. I think
maybe she also didn't want to catch Hakira too early. Yeah, as well. Why attack with Lecourt, the yellow jersey behind? Vollering, I couldn't really figure it out because Lebu is there. So I was like, why doesn't Lebu just set a pace and start driving this descent? worst case, you take time on Kim Lecourt-Pina. Instead, it was Vollering doing the first half. Niewiadoma follows, Ferrand-Prévot follows. They stop. Lebu then does take over. The pace is pretty pedestrian. Hikira's there. She coaches Gigante through the descent.
Right.
The descent's not that technical. It's like mostly just heavy draft on 5% straight. So
it was really awesome to see Justin Hikira come as a descent satellite rider, which is something I have not seen a lot in the sport of cycling. As a descent satellite rider, come to that GC group from the breakaway, go towards Serra Gigante. For a moment, I was like, please don't wait longer. Please, Justin Hikira, don't wait for Kim Lecourt-Pina at the top here. She didn't. She stayed with Serra Gigante. And every time Serra Gigante was at the back, she started shouting at her, shouting her back to the back of the group. That was pretty epic to see. And in a certain corner, there was a gap in front of Gigante. Hikira goes in front of Gigante, closes the gap for her, and then goes back behind her. It seemed like a really proper strategy, actually. I think Sarah also reconned this descent quite a few times, which a good idea for a rider that isn't necessarily the best descender in the world. But I also saw a lot of people say like, okay, she's descending in the hood, stuff like that. I think with riders like this, they're scared of descending in the drops, and fears aren't necessarily rational. They know in their head, okay, I know that the right technique is doing it in the drops, but it's not that simple. If you're scared of doing it in the drops, if you're scared of applying the right strategy, it's the fear taking over. But at the end of the day, she doesn't get vaporized in this ascent. She doesn't lose 40 seconds in this ascent. But, Patrick, we also see Kim Lecourt-Pina returning gradually in this ascent, coming back. And there's one rider that also returns, Serin Kerbaol, in this whole region. And in the last 3 kilometers, Patrick, I was like, okay, they're going to ride to the finish with this group. But no, Cedrin goes off.
Yeah, it actually got very technical when the descent ended. It was still false side downhill. As they got into town, it was a lot of turns, corners, roundabouts in the last 3 kilometers. Squibon's clear. She descended very, very well again. She wins the stage comfortably. And a word on her in a second. But yeah, back-to-back wins for her. And UAE Team ADQ, who only have 4 riders left in the race. Kerbal gets a gap because Niewiadoma, who had been surprisingly passive on the descent, she brakes a little bit too much in a roundabout, leaves a gap to Kerbal. Kerbal's off. Also, Kerbal, I think the appetite to chase her was less from the others because she is quite a bit behind them on GC and she was getting dropped on this climb. So they're like, well, take 10 seconds. See, what do we care? You're going to drop on Madeleine tomorrow.
Yep.
And then there's actually a group, and then Gigante actually gets dropped in this phase and loses 11 seconds. So KLCP comes back. Kerbal takes second on 51 seconds with Ruth Edwards third, Van Anrooy fourth on 53 seconds. Vladarchek, who was in the... Was she in the break?
I don't think she was.
Holy shit.
She was not in the breakaway.
Damn. Vladarchek
She's been riding
fifth.
well this week.
Yeah, damn. 5th, Lecourt-Pina, 6th, then Van der Breggen, Vollering, Niewiadoma, Fischer, Black, Kopecky, Ferrand-Prévot, Lebu, all on the same time on 1 minute. Meyering on 1:02, and Gigante loses 11 seconds in the group of Hikira and Music and Royackers. So good win for Squibon. Weird stage, I have to say. Like, very odd stage. That kind of came with the parkour design. It also comes with the sequencing of the stages that everyone's mentally thinking about the Madeleine uphill finish tomorrow, and they're thinking we just have to get through this stage. They all pretty much do get through the stage, except for Peterson loses 2:21, which is actually a minute 21 to the GC favorites. She crashed on the descent. She was already on a gap, but probably that it was exacerbated by the crash. Mavi Garcia and Malcotti also lose a minute and a half, which is somewhat surprising that Mavi actually gets dropped that badly.
Now about Maëva Squibon, we can talk about her victories, etc. Did you know, Patrick, that on May 16, she was hit by a car and she was only, according to her own words, saved by her helmet being on her head during the crash with her bike? So to come from that 2 months ago, go to the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, win 2 back-to-back stages at this race, epic recovery, and I'm curious where that will go in the future, because if you climb this well from breakaways, etc., you can essentially be a GC rider in races as well, right? Because This climbing level is not just, go in breakaway, win a breakaway stage because the peloton didn't try. No, she keeps the gaps towards the peloton group while she's doing those attacks. She was dominant in every breakaway victory she's done here. There's GC promise, right?
Well, yeah, she lost a load of time on stage 1. I don't know why. She could probably can't top 10 this race, but yeah, she'll top 15 this race, most likely. I mean, why can't she just get in the break again tomorrow? Like, we'll get to the preview tomorrow, but why can't she just win another stage from the break? In terms of GC, Lecor Pinard holds on to her yellow jersey, but it didn't look good, I have to say. I think it was a big show of weakness before tomorrow, and riders will be much less scared of her for Madeleine tomorrow, so it looks like she's borrowing the yellow jersey for now. Ferrand-Prévot still on 26 seconds, Niewiadoma 30 seconds, Vollering 31, Van der Breggen 35, Royackers 104, Kerbol 109, Gigante 114, Muzic 135, Lebu 135. Peterson falls out of the top 10. So in terms of GC gaps, they have barely changed since stage 1.
Yep.
Really. Like, they're barely changing. Lecor Pinard's just mopped up all these bonies, but outside of bonies, Ferrand-Prévot, Niewiadoma, Vollering, Van der Breggen, they haven't gapped each other, more or less. So, yeah.
Difficult wedge question, Patrick. In the final of this race, Lecor actually finished in a group ahead of Serra Gigante. Knowing what happened on the climb on the Granier today, should AG Insurance have taken that on differently? Should Lecor Pinard have waited for Gigante?
Nah.
I agree. I think that might be an early decision. But then again, based on what I saw today, I also don't necessarily see that they need to all-out support Lecor Pinard more than Gigante in the next 2 days.
Gigante will finish ahead of Kim Lecor Pinard. Will be ahead of her on GC tomorrow.
Yeah.
That being said, to make the yellow jersey wait in the last 2Ks when Kira's there,
agree.
I wouldn't really do that. It's way too late to switch and make a rider in the yellow jersey who's done really well so far wait to save it 2 seconds. Meh. So I wouldn't do it. But tomorrow's stage is the big one. It's the one we've all been waiting for. It was the one that, when this route was announced, we were like, holy, this is a massive stage. And the hardest climb we've done so far is the Granier today. It was already very decisive. Tomorrow's 3,500 meters of climbing from Chambéry, where they finished today, to Saint-François-Longchamp, Col de la Madeleine. So it's the Madeleine via the Longchamp side, which is the harder side. It's 112 kilometers. And the climb they open with out of neutral tomorrow is harder than any climb they've done so far. And it's out of neutral. They do 13.3 Ks at 6%. There's a couple of Ks in there at 8% plus. That is a mega hard climb to start with. There's then a descent, not too steep, of about 10 kilometers, a valley of 20 Ks with some ups and downs, another descent down into Châteauneuf where there's a couple of punchy climbs, mostly valley though, apart from the 5K 5% climb in the middle. So yeah, I think if you from 24 Ks in to 92 Ks in, that's like 65 Ks. It's mostly rollers or short moderate climbs. And then they do the Madeleine, which is 19 Ks, 8% to 2,000 meters. The first 9 kilometers average 9 to 9.5%. So the harder, at the start, it's very, very hard. But then no one will be really drafting, I don't think, in the last 8 Ks. At least there won't be a lead out train anymore. When there's a few shallower kilometers, the last 5Ks are still over 7.5%, and it's a high altitude or high-ish altitude. So extremely hard climb. The gaps will be massive. It's a very, very hard stage as well. Opening with such a hard climb will make the gaps even bigger. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm also looking forward to it. Like, we've spoken about climbing performances left and right, the Giro Watts of Gigante versus the best Demi Vollering. I just want everyone to be at their absolute best tomorrow and see how the cards play out. But for me, for the stage victory, it is between Vollering and Gigante, because on paper, those are the only two riders that I've ever seen the climbing levels of. And we haven't necessarily seen them riding against each other on a finish like this. Because also, Gigante's been on such a way back, you know. She's had loads of injuries in the last 2-3 years. And to come back now after, I think, iliac artery surgery, I think was her last one. To come back doing those Giro performances, I expect her to be at a high level tomorrow. You know what, Patrick? I also have this feeling of like, okay, the competition has now underestimated her for the last 2 days. I low-key hope she delivers tomorrow and shows them I'm fucking Sarah Gigante, you know? Like, you also hope that.
I hope she spanks them. I hope she spanks them tomorrow.
I think there's a real possibility that she potentially wins the stage.
Demi didn't look convincing to me.
Okay.
I know that when she'll be focusing on the Madeleine, they're not stupid in that they can identify that the next two hardest stages are where the GC will be made or lost. I've still not been that convinced of Demi either.
I want the full podium for you for tomorrow. Yeah, I've got mine in my head.
I think Gigante wins the stage. Then Demi.
Okay.
Then Royakers.
I'll be honest, I had the exact same one in my head. We're on the same exact line. And it's also because, like, when it comes to pure, the reason Gigante was not necessarily as my okay, she's going to win this Tour de France at the start of this race is because you expect her to lose time in the first 6 stages of this race. But nobody took her seriously from the competition. So I'm feeling the Sarah Gigante pick for tomorrow.
Can the break
for
win?
Me, it's between... Not on Madeleine, in my opinion. Like, if Squibon goes in the break again...
These teams are straight up trolling. Like, it's 60 Ks of rollers and valley where who's going to ride?
Yeah. Also, there's less riders per team. Have you seen how many teams have, like, very limited riders left?
Exactly. And
UX
also,
has 3 riders.
After that 13K 6% climb, how many domestiques are left to pull for an hour and a half? Yeah. No, like, there aren't any.
Like, FDJ Suez is still a full team. And...
Yeah, but they're not going to pace. What are they going to do?
Like, on that first climb, if attacks go for the breakaway on the first climb, Wollaston won't be controlling that. So FDJ Suez will respond, I bet you, FDJ Suez will respond by putting someone in the breakaway instead of chasing it down. The SD works special.
I don't mind that.
It depends on who else is in there.
Well, I think, isn't that the point? Like, putting Shabby in would be, like, horrendous, obviously. Where's she on GC? She's on 13 minutes.
Labou is fine.
Isn't the point of Muzic and Labou to go in the break? I would put Muzic in the break.
Yep.
Because she can't climb. So she probably can't even set up. They're not even going to use her to set a pace on Madeleine. So just put her in the break. I think that could be a good play then. And then who chases? Justine Hikira.
It depends on whoever is in. Unless Justine Hikira is in the breakaway, but that's a dangerous move as well for AG Insurance, because then you don't know who's going to be in that breakaway.
No, they don't need to do that tomorrow.
No,
Tomorrow's way less risky for Gigante.
I think AG will control.
Yeah, they got the yellow jersey. They're going to be confident they have the best climber. They got Van der Velde in good shape.
And they don't need a full train for the last climb, because if they just Suez will ride to make it hard.
You sure about that?
On the climb of the Madeleine, I expect that to be the case. Unless Labou's in the breakaway, which...
Maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't.
Well, Phoenix clearly wants to ride for Royaku.
I think if Cashline is there, like, Phoenix pacing strategy is literally just Cashline does 1 minute all out, and it's been pretty good. So,
Peter's a crash today. Maybe she goes in the break tomorrow if she still feels all right after that crash of today, quite hard in the descent.
I think you got to be pretty good at climbing to get in this break.
think so too.
I reckon the break might even form afterwards because the GC riders just start following on the climb. And so, yeah, I think the break formation tomorrow is going to be very interesting. And we won't have coverage for it, right?
Nope. Not that I'm aware of. That's horrible. That's so sad.
Stage. It's only 117k stage. I feel like something weird's going to happen, Benji.
You've been pointing at it for a few days now. You feel like there's going to be a moment where Demi Vollering has to chase and she's going to short circuit, and that's what you've been shouting for a few days. You still think that's going to happen, that scenario?
I think Squibon might win from the break again.
Luke says good news in the chat tomorrow, live start to finish. Woo!
Let's go. Thank you, ASO.
Yeah, baby.
Thank you, ASO.
Thank you.
That's really good. I need to see this break formation. I need to see it like Hunter Biden. So anyway, I think it's going to be an interesting stage.
Biden?
Don't worry, Benji.
Is that the laptop guy or was that Dr. Freeman? I think they're both the laptop guy.
The same person. I'm really looking forward to it. It's the biggest Queen Stage finish in women's cycling this year. The Tour de France is on the line, and it'll set up a beautiful Sunday stage as well. As you can tell, we're pretty pumped to watch it. Hope you enjoyed the recap. We've just released our Tour de France men's overall recap. Go and check that out if you've got time tonight or tomorrow morning, because we discuss a lot of things, bigger picture things in depth from that race. But until tomorrow's Madeleine recap, ciao, ciao.